I never thought a single evening could change everything I thought I knew about myself. I was sitting on the edge of my bed, staring at the reflection in the mirror, feeling strange. Not bad, just different. My hands were shaking, but not with fear, more like anticipation. I couldn't tell if I was terrified or thrilled. It all started with a joke, or so I thought. A dare from my best friend, Emily, who had this mischievous glint in her eyes that made it impossible to say no. "Just try it," she said. "It's only one night. What's the worst that could happen?" I laughed, brushing it off at first. But laughter has a way of hiding the parts of you that don't know what they really want. As I held the delicate blouse in my hands, feeling the soft fabric against my skin, my mind raced. Why does this feel right? I had always thought of myself as the guy in the group, the one who didn't fuss about clothes or looks. And yet, here I was, staring at a reflection I barely recognized and secretly craving to see more. The room smelled faintly of vanilla and something floral, Emily's perfume, no doubt, and it made the air feel electric, alive. I could hear her voice behind me, teasing but gentle. "Go on, try it. You might surprise yourself." I swallowed hard, my heart hammering in my chest. The mirror didn't lie, but my eyes were seeing something new. Something I wasn't sure I was ready to meet. And just like that, the first thread of change began to weave itself into my life. I didn't know it yet, but by tomorrow, everything familiar, the way I walked, the way I laughed, even the way people looked at me, would feel slightly off. And that unease? It was just the beginning. Because by the end of this journey, I wouldn't just be someone's boyfriend anymore. I would be something more, something I'd never allowed myself to imagine. And if you think this is just about a silly makeover, trust me, you haven't seen the half of it. The morning after Emily's dare, everything felt different. I woke up in my room, sunlight spilling lazily through the blinds, and for a second I thought maybe it had all been a dream. But then I glanced at the corner of my room, where the blouse and a pair of soft leggings lay folded neatly on my chair, and my chest tightened. That small, simple outfit had already planted a seed I didn't know how to name. My apartment, tiny, cluttered, and full of the normal chaos of my life, suddenly seemed like a stage set for something else. My posters of bands I'd loved since high school felt like relics of another me, someone I was slowly leaving behind. I shuffled to the kitchen, yawning, and tried to pour myself a cup of coffee. The smell was comforting, familiar, grounding. But even this small ritual couldn't keep the lingering feeling of change at bay. Emily was already there, of course, perched on the counter with her phone in hand, smirking at me like she had the secret to the universe. "Morning," she said casually, tossing me a mug. "Sleep well?" "Yeah. I guess," I muttered, still adjusting to the fact that my voice sounded slightly different when I tried to talk about last night. Too soft. Too careful. And yet, it wasn't entirely unwelcome. "You look pensive," she teased, leaning back on her hands. "Thinking about trying the outfit?" I hesitated. "I don't know. Maybe later." But even as I said it, a part of me already longed to feel that fabric against my skin again. To see that reflection one more time and examine the lines of my face differently, as if I were looking for something I had been missing all along. The apartment around us seemed alive that morning. The sunlight made the walls glow, the plants Emily insisted we keep were thriving in the corners, and even the faint hum of traffic outside felt like it had a rhythm that matched the flutter in my chest. I found myself noticing little details, the curve of the counter, the way the coffee steam twisted in the air, the soft rustle of Emily's hair when she laughed. Things I had walked past 1,000 times but never really seen. It wasn't just the apartment. It was me. Everything felt slightly sharper, more intense. And the thought of stepping outside like this, uncertain, untested, on the edge of something I couldn't yet name, made my stomach both tighten and flutter. Emily didn't rush me. That was the thing about her, she knew the delicate balance between teasing and gentle nudging. She didn't push, but her presence was like a soft current pulling me forward, nudging me toward a version of myself I hadn't admitted existed. We moved through the morning with casual conversation, but beneath it, an undercurrent of tension hummed, almost like the world had shifted slightly on its axis. By mid-morning, we were sitting together on the couch, the blouse and leggings still folded neatly nearby. Emily had picked out a few accessories, nothing over the top, just subtle things, a light scarf, a soft headband, and a bracelet that caught the light whenever she moved her hand. "Try just one piece," she suggested, her voice almost conspiratorial. "Just to see how it feels." I swallowed, heart racing. My hands itched to reach out, to touch the soft fabric again, but fear anchored me in place. Fear of judgment. Fear of what I might discover about myself. And yet, a small, electric thrill sparked in my chest, an excitement I couldn't deny. I took the scarf first. Soft, lightweight, and warm. I draped it around my neck, and for the first time, the reflection in the mirror felt promising. Not completely familiar, but not frightening either. A hint of curiosity sparked behind my eyes, and I realized I was smiling without meaning to. Emily's grin widened. "See? That wasn't so bad, was it?" I shook my head, laughing nervously. "No, it wasn't bad at all." And then, almost whispering to myself, maybe I like it. The next few hours passed in a blur of small experiments. I tried a headband, rolled the sleeves of the blouse, and watched my reflection as I shifted, awkward at first, then more confident with each movement. Emily didn't push, she just offered small suggestions, gentle words, a laugh here and there. Each interaction chipped away at the walls I didn't even realize I had built around this part of me. By late afternoon, the apartment felt completely transformed. The sunlight had softened, casting a golden glow across the room. The plants, the furniture, even the faint hum of life outside seemed to mirror the subtle transformation I felt within myself. It was exhilarating, and terrifying all at once. Then came the quiet moments, the ones when Emily left the room to grab something from the kitchen or take a call. Alone, I would glance in the mirror, tracing the line of my jaw, the softness in my expression, the slight curve of my hips. Each reflection told a story I hadn't allowed myself to imagine. Who am I becoming? I wondered. And for the first time, the question didn't feel scary. It felt alive. By the end of the day, I knew two things: Emily had opened a door I couldn't close, and I wasn't ready to walk through it fully. But I also knew that something inside me had shifted. Something that had been dormant, ignored, perhaps even hidden in plain sight, had started to stir. And no matter how much I tried to convince myself I could ignore it, that feeling whispered insistently, urging me to explore, to play, to discover. The ordinary apartment, my familiar routine, my simple morning coffee, all of it now felt like the backdrop for something extraordinary. And I had no idea where this path would take me, only that I wanted to find out. That evening, Emily suggested we head out. "Just a little walk," she said, her voice light, teasing. But I could feel the tension building in my chest. A walk wasn't just a walk anymore, it was an opportunity to test this new version of myself against the outside world. My heart thumped at the thought of being seen, really seen, in this unfamiliar light. I hesitated at the door, glancing at the outfit she'd laid out for me, a simple, soft blouse, leggings that clung just enough to hint at shape, and a pair of flats she insisted were super comfy. My fingers brushed the fabric, a shiver running through me. I had no idea if I could actually do it, but something inside me wanted to. Something that had been buried beneath years of habit, routine, and the comfort of being unnoticed. Emily noticed my hesitation and smiled gently. "Hey," she said, stepping closer, "you don't have to do anything you don't want to. But I think you'll surprise yourself." I swallowed, heart hammering. I think I want to try." Her grin widened. "That's the spirit." Stepping outside, the evening air hit me differently. It was cool, carrying the faint smell of rain from earlier, and it felt sharp against my skin. I was hyper-aware of every sound, the distant hum of traffic, the chatter of neighbors, the rustle of leaves in the breeze. And me. How I moved, how I held myself, how my blouse felt against my arms. We walked down the street slowly, Emily chatting easily about her day, but I could barely focus on her words. Every glance from passers-by felt like a tiny electric shock, some curious, some indifferent, some teasing. And with each one, my chest both tightened and fluttered. I wasn't ashamed, exactly. Not yet. But I was acutely aware of how different I looked, or maybe how different I felt. Then came the dare. A group of Emily's friends happened to be out in the small cafe we passed. Perfect timing, she whispered, tugging my hand lightly. Come on, just a quick hello. I froze. My instinct screamed to run, to hide, but Emily's grip was firm and reassuring. You're okay, she said softly. Just be yourself. I stepped inside, heart in my throat. They all turned toward us, and for a moment, I felt the world tilt. The first few seconds were a blur of smiles, hellos, and small jokes. But then, someone, Alex, a friend I hadn't seen in months, gave me a look that made my stomach twist. Not cruel, not mocking, just surprised. Wow, he said, struggling for words. You look different. I felt heat creep up my neck, my fingers curling around the strap of my bag. Yeah, I muttered, voice barely above a whisper. Different is good, I guess. Emily's laughter, soft and teasing, cut through the tension. He's rocking it, isn't he? She said, giving me a quick wink. The rest of the night was a slow-motion dance of curiosity and nerves. Every laugh, every compliment, every accidental glance and a reflection fueled a strange, intoxicating mix of pride and fear. I found myself noticing little things about my posture, my gestures, the way I shifted my weight. I couldn't deny that I liked the way it felt. Liked the way I saw myself reflected in their eyes, even if it was fleeting. When we left, the cool night air hit me again, and I felt my pulse slow slightly. Emily linked her arm with mine. See, she whispered. Not so scary, right? I smiled, though it was shaky. No, it wasn't. Not really. Back at the apartment, the adrenaline lingered, making it hard to sit still. I couldn't stop replaying the evening in my mind, the glances, the laughter, the small, electric thrill of stepping outside as someone I hadn't admitted I could be. Then Emily sat down across from me, her expression softening. You know, she began, this isn't just about clothes. Or how people see you. It's about how you see yourself. I froze. Her words struck something deep inside me. Something I hadn't realized I was holding back, not just fear, but curiosity, longing, a part of me that wanted to explore this new side. I don't know, I whispered, feeling the weight of truth pressing against me. I'm not sure who I'm supposed to be anymore. Emily leaned forward, gently. Maybe you don't have to be anyone you're supposed to be. Maybe you just need to be, you. Whoever that is. I wanted to argue, to deny it, to run back to the familiar comfort of my old self. But the truth was quiet, insistent. And in that moment, I realized the journey wasn't about anyone else's approval, it was about discovering something I hadn't allowed myself to know. The dare, the walk, the casual compliments, they weren't just triggers. They were keys, opening doors to emotions I had buried, to a side of myself that was soft, vulnerable, and thrillingly new. And as I sat there, staring at Emily, feeling both terrified and exhilarated, I knew one thing for certain, there was no going back. The evening had started as a simple experiment, a lighthearted joke. By the time I drifted off to sleep, it had become the first step of a transformation I couldn't yet name, but couldn't resist either. Something had shifted inside me, and I was curious to see just how far it could go. The next morning, I woke with a strange mixture of excitement and dread. Emily was already bustling around the kitchen, humming softly as she prepared breakfast. The smell of toast and coffee filled the apartment, warm and familiar, but it couldn't fully ground me. My mind was tangled in thoughts I wasn't ready to admit out loud. I glanced at the outfit laid neatly on the chair, the blouse, leggings, and flats from yesterday evening. It called to me like a whisper I couldn't ignore. Part of me wanted to slip it on again immediately, To feel the soft fabric against my skin and lose myself in that strange, thrilling reflection. But another part, the part one thought of as me, the safe, predictable self, hesitated. Emily noticed my gaze. Thinking about it, she asked lightly, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. I shrugged, trying to sound casual. Maybe. I don't know if I should. She set the mugs on the counter, sliding one toward me. You don't have to decide right now, she said, her voice soft but steady. But there's no rush. Just, explore it at your own pace. I nodded, though my pulse was already quickening. Even the suggestion felt like permission. A small, electric thrill ran through me at the thought of stepping further into this world I hadn't allowed myself to imagine. By mid-morning, I found myself standing in front of the mirror, the blouse in my hands. My reflection stared back, both familiar and foreign. Fingers trembling, I slipped the fabric over my shoulders. The sensation of it against my skin made my breath catch. I caught myself adjusting, fidgeting, examining every line and curve, every shadow that hinted at change. Emily came up behind me quietly, resting her hands gently on my shoulders. See, she whispered. You look like you belong here. I laughed nervously, shaking my head. I don't know about that. But even as I said it, the lie didn't feel true. Somewhere deep down, a small voice whispered that this, right here, felt right. The day stretched long, filled with small, intimate experiments. Emily suggested subtle changes, rolling sleeves differently, tucking the blouse slightly, adjusting my posture. Each change was minor, almost imperceptible, but the effect was cumulative. I started to notice the way my body moved differently, the slight softness in my gestures, the way the air seemed to shift around me when I walked. And then came the psychological twists. Every glance in a reflective surface, window panes, spoons, even the dark screen of my laptop, made me pause, examining the person I was becoming. There was excitement, yes, but also shame, a gnawing fear that I was betraying the me everyone expected. My thoughts spun, who am I really? Do I even want to find out? Emily didn't let me dwell too long in uncertainty. She had a knack for balance, teasing me gently, encouraging curiosity without pressure. Try walking down the hallway like that, she'd suggest. Or, move your hand this way, just for fun. Each small instruction was a nudge, a way to coax me out of my comfort zone without forcing me. One afternoon, we ventured out again, this time to a small boutique Emily loved. She handed me a scarf, draping it over my shoulders. It's subtle, she said, but it changes everything. I hesitated, feeling the heat rise in my cheeks. I don't know if I'm ready, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. She gave me that gentle, unrelenting smile. You don't have to be ready. You just have to try. Walking through the boutique was surreal. Every reflection, every glance from strangers, every subtle compliment from Emily, you look great, try this, was a test and a thrill at the same time. My mind raced with a strange cocktail of embarrassment and exhilaration. I wanted to run, to hide, to return to the predictable safety of my old life, but a part of me, deep and insistent, wanted to linger, to feel, to explore. Back at the apartment, the small experiments became more intricate. I practiced subtle gestures, tilts of the head, ways of holding my arms, ways of speaking. I caught myself laughing differently, softer, more melodic. Each reflection showed me a new layer of myself I hadn't allowed to exist. And yet, at the same time, I felt guilt and confusion creeping in. Am I losing myself? Or finally finding who I really am? Then came the quiet, private moments, the ones where I could stare into the mirror without anyone watching, where I could trace my jawline, my collarbone, the soft curves of my silhouette. I started talking to myself softly, asking questions I hadn't dared before. Do I like this? Am I happier like this? And with each answer, I realized the truth, yes. Yes, I liked it. More than I wanted to admit. Emily noticed the subtle shift. One evening, as we sat on the couch after another long day of experimentation, she tilted her head and said, "You're not hiding anymore. I swallowed hard. I don't know what that means. She smiled knowingly. It means you're starting to see yourself. Really see yourself. And maybe, just maybe, you like who's looking back. I laughed nervously, but there was warmth in it, a release I hadn't felt in years. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once. I felt exposed, vulnerable, and alive in ways I couldn't have imagined. Over the next week, the transformation continued, subtle and steady. Emily introduced small challenges, tiny changes in outfits, soft encouragements to move differently, gentle nudges to speak in ways that felt unfamiliar yet natural. Each one brought a rush of fear, a spike of excitement, and an underlying, undeniable thrill. By the end of the week, the reflection in the mirror no longer startled me. It wasn't shocking, foreign, or wrong, it was me. Or at least, a version of me I hadn't allowed myself to meet. I caught glimpses of confidence, of curiosity, of a delicate vulnerability that made my heart pound and my mind spin. And through it all, Emily remained the constant, teasing, gentle, encouraging. She never forced, never mocked. She simply held the space, a safe harbor in the storm of change I hadn't known I needed. By the time I went to bed that Sunday night, I was exhausted, exhilarated, and deeply aware of the slow, irresistible pull of transformation. Something had shifted inside me. I wasn't just experimenting with outfits or gestures. I was discovering emotions, layers, and truths I hadn't allowed myself to feel. And as I drifted off, I realized the most thrilling part of this journey wasn't the way the world might see me, it was the way I was beginning to see myself. By the middle of the second week, something had changed. The thrill of experimentation had evolved into something deeper, subtler, yet undeniably powerful. I no longer just tried on the clothes, I lived in them. The mirror didn't surprise me anymore, it reflected someone I was beginning to recognize, someone I was starting to like. It started small. A tilt of my head when I laughed, a soft curve to my smile, a little sway in my step that I hadn't noticed before. Emily didn't comment, she didn't have to. I felt her approval in the way she watched me, the gentle teasing glances, the quiet encouragement in her eyes. It was intoxicating. One evening, she suggested we go to a quiet cafe downtown. Just us, she said. No one else, no distractions. You can practice. Practice. The word made my stomach flutter, but I understood. This wasn't just about clothes or appearances anymore. It was about inhabiting a new version of myself, exploring the possibilities, testing the boundaries of comfort and identity. Walking to the cafe, I noticed every detail. The evening air felt soft against my skin, carrying hints of blooming flowers and distant pastries. My blouse clung lightly to my shoulders, leggings fitting just right. I moved differently now, lighter, freer, almost cautious, yet with an underlying confidence I hadn't possessed before. I caught my reflection in the window of a shop and paused. For the first time, I smiled without hesitation, without self-consciousness. Emily reached for my hand as we entered the cafe, and I felt a warmth spread through me. Not just from touch, but from acknowledgement. I wasn't hiding anymore, not really. And the feeling was exhilarating. Inside, the cafe was quiet, bathed in soft golden light. We chose a corner table, and Emily leaned across it, her eyes twinkling. See, she said softly. No one's judging. Just you. I nodded, feeling a flutter in my chest. I think I'm starting to like this. I mean, it's scary, but I like it. Her grin was slow, teasing, but warm. I knew you would. The words lingered in the air, soft and heavy. I realized that this was more than play. This was discovery. Every gesture, every smile, every glance in a reflective surface was teaching me something about myself, something I had ignored, denied, or simply never allowed to surface. As we sipped our drinks, I felt a shift. It wasn't sudden, not dramatic. It was subtle, creeping through my bones and mind like dawn light through a window. I caught myself imagining new possibilities, how I might move through the world, how I might be seen, how I might feel. Emily noticed the change. "You're glowing," she said lightly. "Like you've stepped into someone you've been carrying inside all along." I laughed nervously, feeling the truth of it resonate. "I think I'm starting to feel like myself. Or maybe, like someone I've always wanted to be." That night, back in my apartment, I spent hours in front of the mirror, trying subtle changes to my posture, my expressions, even my voice. Each adjustment felt natural, almost instinctive. The reflection staring back at me no longer caused hesitation or fear. Instead, it sparked curiosity and confidence, mingled with a soft, thrilling vulnerability. I began experimenting with small aspects of presentation, ways of tilting my head, letting my hair fall across my face, the curve of a shoulder. Emily encouraged me quietly, never directing, only suggesting, nudging me to notice how each gesture made me feel. And slowly, I began to understand, this wasn't about becoming someone else. It was about discovering the self I had never allowed to fully exist. Over the next few days, I noticed subtle shifts in how people treated me. Not dramatic, not overt. But a gentle acknowledgement here, a lingering glance there. I didn't seek it, but I noticed it. And it made me realize how much of the old me, rigid, self-conscious, careful, had been holding me back. Then came a private moment with Emily that would define the midpoint of my transformation. We were sitting together on the couch late at night, soft music playing in the background. I was wearing a new blouse she had picked out, simple and flowing, and leggings that hugged my legs comfortably. I caught myself adjusting the scarf around my neck, feeling it against my skin, feeling alive. "You look happy," she whispered. I hesitated, unsure how to put it into words. I think I am," I admitted. "I'm not just playing dress up anymore. I feel different. Better, somehow." Her hand brushed mine, light and teasing, and a shiver ran through me. "That's the point," she said softly. "Not to become someone else, but to become the you that's been waiting inside." The words hit me harder than I expected. I had spent so long trying to fit into expectations, into roles, into safety. And now, for the first time, I allowed myself to consider that maybe the self I was exploring was real. And maybe it was exactly who I was meant to be, in ways I hadn't admitted. That night, I practiced more than just clothes or gestures. I practiced confidence, curiosity, gentleness. I experimented with expressions, with ways of speaking that felt soft yet assertive. And for the first time, I realized that the thrill wasn't just external, it came from inside. The reflection in the mirror was no longer foreign. It was mine. Over the next few days, I began embracing this version of myself more boldly. I experimented with makeup, with accessories, with small changes that made me feel seen, even when alone. Emily's guidance was subtle but powerful, a constant reminder that I could explore safely, that curiosity wasn't a weakness, and that self-acceptance could be thrilling. By the end of the midpoint, I understood something essential. This journey wasn't about hiding or performing. It wasn't about anyone else's perception. It was about exploring, feeling, and discovering a version of myself I had denied for too long. The excitement, the fear, the curiosity, they were all part of a delicate balance that made me feel alive in a way I hadn't known possible. And for the first time, I didn't want to go back. It was a rainy evening when the confrontation finally arrived. The kind of rain that taps insistently against the window pane, blurring the world outside and forcing you to look inward. Emily and I had spent the day experimenting with new outfits, new gestures, new ways of being. I felt confident, radiant even, but there was a tension in my chest I couldn't shake. She suggested we go out for a quiet dinner at a small bistro downtown. "Just us," she said. "A little celebration of how far you've come." I nodded, heart fluttering. Part of me wanted to stay home, safe, hidden, but another part, the part that had learned to thrill at discovery, wanted to step into the world fully. And so I agreed, pulling on a blouse that flowed gently over my shoulders and leggings that clung comfortably, completing the look with a soft scarf Emily had insisted would tie everything together. As we stepped into the night, the rain-dampened streets reflected neon signs and streetlights in puddles. Each step I took felt deliberate, measured, and I couldn't help but notice how differently I walked now. I moved with an awareness I hadn't possessed before, a subtle, fluid grace that made my chest both swell and ache at the same time. The bistro was nearly empty, soft music playing in the background. Emily led me to a corner table, her hand brushing mine in a casual, teasing way. "Relax," she whispered. "You're perfect like this." I smiled, but the smile didn't reach my eyes. Beneath the excitement, fear lingered, gnawing quietly. The reflection of myself in the window across from our table was striking. I barely recognized the person staring back, the softness in my face, the subtle curve of my lips, the way my eyes seemed larger, more expressive. And then came Alex. He hadn't expected to see me, and I hadn't expected him to appear either. But there he was, standing in the doorway with a friend, eyes widening as he caught sight of me. That look, the mix of surprise, confusion, and something else, hit me like a wave. "Wow," he muttered, struggling for words. I didn't recognize you." My chest tightened. Old instincts, the desire to hide, to retreat, flared, but I forced myself to stay seated. Emily's hand found mine under the table, a grounding touch. "It's okay," she said softly. "You're fine. Just be yourself." I drew in a shaky breath, trying to steady my nerves. I'm still me," I whispered, almost to myself. "Just different." Alex stepped closer, hesitation in his posture. "Different, good different?" I swallowed, words caught in my throat. I wanted to explain, to justify, to make it less strange. But Emily's gentle squeeze reminded me that explanation wasn't necessary. Acceptance didn't require justification, it required presence. "Yes," I said finally, voice firmer than I expected. "Good different." And then something unexpected happened. Instead of mocking, instead of judgment, Alex smiled. "You look amazing," he admitted, and the warmth in his voice surprised me. Relief and joy washed through me, but so did vulnerability. I realized just how fragile this moment was, the balance between fear and exhilaration, judgment and acceptance. Later, at the table, Emily leaned close. "See," she whispered. "You're stronger than you think." I nodded, but the truth was deeper than strength. It was revelation. All the experimentation, all the fear, all the small victories, it had led me here, to a place where I could meet the world and myself at the same time. And yet, beneath the joy, a quiet doubt lingered. Can I really keep doing this? Will I ever feel safe fully being me? The tension reached its peak later that evening, back at the apartment. Alone for a moment, I stared in the mirror. The reflection was undeniable now. There was confidence there, yes, but also fragility, a quiet ache of uncertainty. I traced the line of my jaw, my collarbone, the softness of my shoulders, and whispered aloud, "Who am I?" The answer didn't come immediately. Instead, it arrived in waves, memories of small experiments, of laughter, of Emily's quiet encouragement, of that fleeting approval in Alex's eyes. Every step had built toward this confrontation, not with anyone else, but with myself. I sank onto the couch, head in my hands. "I don't know if I can do this," I admitted. "I'm scared I'll lose myself." Emily sat beside me, silent at first, then soft and insistent. "You won't lose yourself," she said gently. "You're discovering parts of yourself you've hidden. That's not losing, it's finding. And you're allowed to find them at your own pace." I looked at her, tears pricking my eyes, a mixture of fear, relief, and gratitude swirling inside me. "But what if people don't accept me? What if I'm wrong?" She shook her head, smiling softly. "You're not wrong. You're brave. And anyone who can't see that isn't worth your worry." For the first time, I let myself breathe fully. The tension that had coiled inside me for weeks, the fear, the excitement, the uncertainty, unraveled. I realized that acceptance, both internal and external, wasn't instantaneous. It was a journey, built from countless small choices, moments of courage, and whispers of self-truth. I rose from the couch, feeling a quiet strength in my step. I moved to the mirror, gazing directly into my own eyes. Like you, I whispered to my reflection. I like me. And in that instant, the transformation felt complete, not because I had changed who I was, but because I had finally allowed myself to embrace who I truly could be. The rain outside had stopped. Streetlights reflected softly in puddles, echoing the gentle glow I felt within. I turned toward Emily, gratitude shining in my eyes. She smiled, teasing, proud, knowing this was more than an outfit, more than a dare, it was a revelation. I wasn't just someone's boyfriend anymore. I was discovering the self I had long denied, and it was beautiful, fragile, thrilling, and mine. The days after that night felt different. Lighter. Somehow more expansive. The tension that had clawed at my chest for weeks had softened into a quiet hum of possibility. I moved through my apartment with a subtle awareness, noticing small details, the way sunlight touched the edges of the furniture, the gentle sway of the plants Emily insisted we keep, the soft hum of life outside my window. Everything felt like it had a heartbeat. I caught my reflection in the mirror and smiled without hesitation. Not a nervous, unsure smile, but a real one, warm, confident, and tinged with the curiosity of someone finally getting to know themselves. I realized that the journey hadn't been about becoming someone else, or about impressing anyone. It had been about permission, the permission to explore, to feel, and to exist without apology. Emily noticed, of course. She had been my guide, my constant presence, my safe harbor in the storm of change. That evening, she sat with me on the couch, her hands resting lightly in her lap, her eyes soft and teasing as always. "You've changed," she said. I laughed softly. Maybe I was always here, and I just didn't know it yet." She nodded, understanding. "There's something beautiful about discovering yourself slowly, carefully. And you've done it gracefully." There were quiet moments too, when I was alone, that gave me space to reflect. I thought about the small experiments, the subtle gestures, the delicate teasing, the moments of fear and exhilaration. I thought about Alex's surprised smile in the cafe, Emily's encouragement, and the hours spent practicing in front of the mirror. Each memory felt like a thread weaving together into something solid, something lasting, a version of myself that felt real, authentic, and alive. I began to embrace new routines. I experimented with outfits, not because anyone expected me to, but because I wanted to. I allowed myself to linger longer in the mirror, to trace the line of my jaw, the curve of my shoulders, the softness I had once avoided acknowledging. I found joy in small gestures, tilting my head, adjusting a scarf, laughing softly at my reflection. Each act was a quiet assertion of who I was, who I could be, and the subtle freedom that came from accepting it. Emily continued to be beside me, teasing and gentle, never pushing, always supportive. One evening, she brought a small journal. "Write down what you feel," she suggested. "Even the little things. You'll see how far you've come." I took it, unsure at first. But as I wrote, the words flowed easily, capturing moments I hadn't noticed before, the thrill of stepping outside, the flutter of excitement at a glance in the mirror, the quiet pride in feeling seen. Each entry reminded me that this journey wasn't a single moment, but a series of discoveries, each one a step toward understanding myself. There were challenges too. Fear didn't vanish overnight. Sometimes, a reflection would make me pause, a glance from a stranger would make me stiffen, a memory of old insecurities would creep back. But now, I met those moments with awareness, not shame. I reminded myself of the journey I had taken, of the courage it required to explore, and of the freedom I had discovered within it. And then came a quiet, unexpected joy. One afternoon, Emily suggested a small outing to a park nearby. Sunlight streamed through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the path. I walked beside her, lighter than I had felt in months. The world felt softer, kinder, and somehow more attuned to me. A breeze lifted strands of my hair, and I laughed softly at the sensation. Emily looked at me, eyes twinkling. See? You're glowing. I smiled, truly smiling, feeling the truth in her words. I feel free, I admitted. Not just in how I look, but in everything. She nodded, her hand brushing mine. That's the real transformation, she said. The rest is just details. The realization hit me fully in that moment, the makeover, the outfits, the subtle gestures, the soft teasing, the gradual unfolding, it had all been a path toward freedom. Freedom to explore, freedom to feel, freedom to accept. And it wasn't about anyone else. It was about me. By the time the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, I felt a quiet satisfaction. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been fear, hesitation, vulnerability. But there had also been wonder, joy, and discovery. And in that delicate balance, I found something far more profound than a change of clothes or gestures. I found myself. Back at the apartment, I stood in front of the mirror one last time that evening. The reflection was familiar now, yet every glance revealed something new, a softness, a confidence, a playful curiosity. I whispered to myself, softly, almost reverently, I'm here. I'm me. And I like it. Emily watched from the doorway, smiling quietly. You've come a long way, she said. I nodded, feeling gratitude swell in my chest. Yeah. I have. There was no grand finale, no dramatic announcement, no need for applause. The transformation had already happened, quietly, slowly, beautifully. And as I turned away from the mirror and toward the soft glow of the room, I knew that this was just the beginning. The journey would continue, always evolving, always revealing new layers of who I could be. And for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace,